My wife is a green card holder. Does she need to pay?
Does she live in the District of Columbia?
No, she lives in Arlington, Texas.
Okay.
And she's just a regular employee of Amazon.
Okay. So she's not a citizen or resident of the District of Columbia. Therefore, the law does not require her to file income tax. What you want to do is this. Go to our website, the 7 steps, follow the law. The only people that are required to file income tax are citizens and residents of Washington, D.C. Also, if you have real estate in D.C., okay, maybe some of the activities in Washington, D.C., they owe income tax, which includes everybody else from all over the earth, from France, Russia, Japan, California, Texas, Florida, Arkansas, the 50 states. None of you owe income tax. Okay? Whether you have income, green card holder, American citizen, or from Egypt, doesn't matter. You're not a citizen or resident of Washington, D.C.
In a time when Israel and the world faces unprecedented challenges, there's a practical way to stand with Israel while making sound investments for your future. Wise Money Israel offers you the same professional...
Peymon who?
Mottaedeh.
Peymon Mottaedeh. Who is he?
Never paid taxes for 30 years. Fought the U.S. tax court and won.
See, I believe our rights come from God, not from government.
You are about to find out about IRS's biggest secret. Why 99% of Americans legally are not required to file and pay federal income taxes, and you are probably one of them, as shown on U.S. government's official legal websites. I am Peymon Mottaedeh, the president of Freedom Law School, which I started in 1996, and for over 30 years, I've not filed and paid any federal income taxes and shown other Americans to do the same legally and safely. So here it is. Get ready for a fun ride, okay? So here it is, the 1040 U.S. individual income tax return form that most Americans file by April 15 of the year. And they assume that this form is for them, for people of the 50 United States. That is wrong. This form is not for the people of the 50 United States. This is actually a form for people of District of Columbia. It should be labeled D.C. individual income tax return, not U.S. individual income tax return, because they've deceived you, suckered you to pay income taxes you don't owe. Let's look at the 1040 instructions handbook that the IRS puts out. We go to page 8, and the IRS correctly tells you about filing requirements, that these rules apply to all U.S. citizens. Oh, that U.S., they want you to believe it's the 50 states, United States. It is not, okay? So let's go find out more about this issue a little bit more, okay? Now, everybody knows the law is published online these days. This is the official source of the law, published from the U.S. House of Representatives Legal Counsel at uscode.house.gov. So when we go there, okay, we're going to come across this. Everybody knows that the Internal Revenue Code, is the Bible of the IRS. Here it is, folks. I have a paper copy in my hand, the Internal Revenue Code. About 10,000 pages of gobbledygook, tiny font, okay, minutia written, tissue thing to confuse you on purpose, okay? I'm going to show you how the truth was hidden in the definitions in the back, not in the front, so that way you get to be deceived and become a slave of the IRS unwittingly. So here we go. Online, Title 26 Internal Revenue Code, okay? Everybody knows that Section 1 of the code imposes the income tax. Okay, no question about that. But who is that individual? Again, we're going to go look at the government for answers. This is a Code of Federal Regulations. And here is Section 1.1-1, okay? Income tax on individuals. And it tells us in Section 1 of the code, the Internal Revenue Code. That's what they're referring to, the Bible of the IRS, the federal tax law book they're talking about, okay? So Section 1 of the code you just saw imposes an income tax on the income of every individual who is a citizen or resident of the United States. Again, they use United States, and it leads you to believe that United States means the 50 states, but it does not, okay? Let's look at it closer now. When you go back to the laws as published by the House of Representatives, Title 26, Internal Revenue Code, okay? Chapter 79, definitions, okay? Here we go down is Section 7,701. When used in this title, they define many different terms that do not need any defining anyways, but let's look at state first. The term state shall be construed to include the District of Columbia, which is not a state at all. But listen, Congress can define things any way they want. They made, for tax purposes, D.C. a state. Okay, that's fine. Now let's look at the term United States. When used in a geographical sense, includes only the states, which we now know, Congress told us it's the District of Columbia, okay? So it includes only the states and the District of Columbia again. Oh, wow! Look at this. United States is basically includes District of Columbia plus the District of Columbia. No matter how many District of Columbias you add, what do you get still? No France, no Russia, no China, no California, Texas, New York, only District of Columbia. So I know what you're thinking. You think, oh, Peymon, obviously everybody knows the 50 states are implied. They don't have to say it. It's already there. Oh, no. Not according to the U.S. Supreme Court, okay? Here it is, Supreme Court case of Stenberg versus Carhart. It came out in year 2000. And here is what the relevant language of the court says, okay? When a statute or law includes an explicit definition, like the ones you just saw, we must follow that definition, even if it varies from that term's ordinary meaning. Ordinarily, the 50 states are implied in the United States, but here we must follow Section 7701. It only includes District of Columbia. That is what's there. And then further on continues, it is axiomatic, which means self-evident, obvious, that the statutory or legal definition of the term excludes unstated meanings of that term. So, again, Section 7701, you don't see in there any of the 50 states in definition of the United States or state, so it's not there. You cannot assume it's there because Congress chose to keep it out on purpose. And here's now another Supreme Court case of Gould versus Gould. Unanimous 1917 U.S. Supreme Court case. And here is what the holding or conclusion of the court is about taxes. In the interpretation or understanding of statutes, laws, levying taxes, imposing taxes. So in imposing laws that interpret taxes, It is the established rule not to extend their provisions of tax laws by implication, by implying or assume something is there, like the 50 states are not listed in the United States definition or state, therefore it's not there. You cannot assume any of that stuff beyond the clear import of the language used in the law, or to enlarge the operations of the tax laws so as to embrace or include matters not specifically pointed out. Something that is not specifically pointed out simply is not there, unanimous Supreme Court tells you. And they add this one important thing to it. In case of doubt, any doubt about this, they, the tax laws, are construed most strongly against the government's power to tax and in favor of the citizen not being taxed. Not strongly, most strongly. So any doubts you had about this, that the United States and state mean only this District of Columbia, it should be erased right now from your mind. So now you see what I mean when I say this U.S. individual income tax return is not the 50